Y'all, thank y'all so much. We are back for the Sunny Side View, and I have some special guests today. I have the great Larnee Satchell. Is that how you say your last name? Satchell?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Like Satchel Paige, but 2 L's. So we have Larnee here. Larnee, tell us a little bit about yourself. Just a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are. Don't give us your whole resume because we're going to talk about it through the show.
Okay.
But just give it to me.
Okay, short and cute. I am Larnee Satchell. I am an experienced grassroots organizer who specializes in civic engagement. I have been in the work, been an advocate since I was 16. So we are going on 7 years now of being in the field, being hands-on, and working with my community. My activism journey started again at 16 in summer of 2016 when the deaths of Orlando Castile and Alton Sterling happened right around the 4th of July, and kind of just changed my perspective on the state of America and what it is like to be Black in America versus the ideals that America upholds. And so that was the start of my journey. And again, almost 7 years later, I am here, still working, still active, still being an activist, just now with a degree and pursuing a law degree.
Period, with a degree. And that degree is from Spelman, right?
Yes, I am an alumna, class of 2022 from the HBCU, the home of Black Girl Magic, Spelman College.
We love to see it. Y'all, my sister, Lisa Henderson, is also on here. Lisa will be jumping in as we're talking through with Larnee, because we're just super excited about what Larnee does. So I want to ask you, you mentioned that, that summer of change is kind of what everybody has, that moment. I feel like that's like the moment of change. I think my moment of change was maybe my junior or senior year in high school. And I grew up in an area, my parents, moved us to an area where I was the only African-American in most of my class, all of my classes. And so I never had an African-American teacher. I just remember, maybe it was like that senior year where I looked up and realized that, the few other African-Americans that were in our class, we were sitting there and we were talking, and it was during the time in Cincinnati, there were some riots that were happening. So in the inner city, there was a curfew put in place. So all of our friends from church were coming out to our house in the suburbs. And I started asking like, yo, how come we don't have a curfew? Like, what's going on? I didn't really understand like what was happening. But that was like my moment when I realized that how policing is done in areas that are predominantly Black and brown, and how, a kid that's my same age that plays softball like I did, because they lived in a different zip code, they weren't allowed to come outside after 7:00. And I started just thinking about the way that policing is done. Now, this was really early on. This was kind of like right after Rodney King. Like, it was a lot that happened in that space. But that was like my moment, where you kind of woke up and you like, wait, this actually affects me. So how did you feel like in that moment where, you had that moment, that civic engagement moment where you were like, wait a minute, I got to do something?
Yeah, it was definitely a summer of change and changing my passions. Before that, my passion was basketball. By the end of my high school career, I had spent 7 years in basketball, time all around. And for that summer before my junior year, I was kind of falling in love with the sport. And who knew that I would be falling in love with activism and my community. I remember it being 4th of July, and a few days later, seeing that a Black man was lynched all through my timeline on Instagram, and just reflecting on parallels of a Black person living in America and the differences that we have as Black people who live in America, and how we can celebrate a nation that stands on the ideals of independence, stands on the ideals of freedom, stands on the ideals of liberation, and at the same time has for generations, for centuries, chained up Black people, locked up Black people, not giving us what we are due, not giving us the proper liberation that we deserve as humans, and as people who, need reparations for all of the different things that our ancestors have gone through. So I spent that summer reading. I spent that summer watching different documentaries. And out of that summer birthed the Black Student Union at my high school. I'm one of 5 founders of that Black Student Union. That Black Student Union also was birthed out of a conversation that we were having in one of our classes, and just talking about spaces not being available to us. And that's, very interesting because my high school was predominantly Black and brown. And so even in a predominantly Black and brown space, we still felt like there was no safe space for us. We needed time to debrief. Our curriculum did not reflect on how we felt. Our curriculum did not reflect on where we were on our current events within that time frame. And we needed a safe space. We needed a space for community. We needed a space to reflect on the times. We needed a safe space to reflect on our school and all different things that were happening to us as Black and brown kids at our school, with a majority Black and brown population, but majority white teachers. And when I entered into my AP classes, majority white kids in these AP classes, when we have 30% white and 70% Black children, but there are 3 of us in here. And so all those things led to who I am today. I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm grateful for being able to find my voice in that experience, and being a founder at the BSU, and they're still calling me and asking me to come to different things that they're having. So to see them again almost 7 years later, still be in full effect is definitely a joy.
I mean, you're a legacy builder. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because as you were talking, Larnee, I was thinking about during my time coming up in high school. I graduated high school in 2001. I didn't see anything that looked like me except BET. Like that was it. And you had to pay extra to get BET. Like that wasn't included. MTV and VH1, they was included, right? That's how they other us. You know what I'm saying? That's how, and things that, I remember like getting interviewed for like the, as a singer, I was like interviewed with like the newspaper or something like that. And basically, like they literally wrote in there like, oh, she's such a strong Black student. Like, I was like, where did that come from? Who decided? And so, and I remember like I was chosen for like the leadership committee or something like that. And one of my teachers didn't want me to go. We would have had to miss school for like half a day on Friday. Didn't want to sign off for me to go because that day she was going to be discussing like some type of Black literature, and she wanted me to be in the class. And my mom went up there like, what? Like, that's not how this works. This is not how it goes. So, when I think about kind of those moments, those early moments where maybe we didn't necessarily know it would bring us to where we are now. I'm definitely definitely a completely different person, now, but I can see even the people that I spent time with, even my friends who are white, like these are like abolitionists that I hung out with. Like they're like people that are for the cause, like they're gonna stand up for everybody even to this day. So, Lisa, how did you feel? Was it similar? Were you like, was it the same way when you were coming up?
Well, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, when I was coming up, I grew up in West Texas, which is a small little bitty town. And it was probably a handful of Blacks at the school. And it was like when we had dances and everything like that, we were kind of like sectioned off. It was still segregation, which was crazy. We're in the 80s, why are we still segregated? More like they called us. Oh, they call me. Ah, shit.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll get it.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
I love that though. And that's crazy because you said that's in the 80s. And we think, again, sometimes people are like, we think it's been so long since people have, experienced segregation. But like today, it's still going on, even, we can go into a particular school. I know a Christian school in Atlanta right now that don't got no Black kids. No Black kids. And we'll say like, oh, no, that's just because, no, it's because you're not, your school is not accessible. What we do instead of saying this is a white school, now we'll price it out or we'll put it in a neighborhood that, strategically or systemically, we know that a particular group of people highly likely won't be able to afford, or if they do, or if they can't afford it, they don't want to move there because they don't want to be the only, so we kind of strategically, put these things into place, and we'll see it. So yeah, I definitely hear exactly what you're saying, Lisa, because you like, yo, the 80s, they were still segregated, and it's still happening now. Larnee, let me ask you, as you talk about kind of your start and as you started to push into like your college years, what was something different? Where did you feel like because you were, like a young adult, suddenly it was like, I got access, I'm doing what I got to do. I will say, I told my daughter, I said, listen, I don't mind if you get arrested for protesting. I'll come pick you up for that. So I do have protest bail money at all times, just so it's
at all times. You hear me? For college, even though I graduated from the illustrious Spelman College, I did transfer. So I spent the first 2 years of my collegiate experience at a PWI, a medium-sized PWI in Connecticut. My experience there was something that I had never experienced before. Growing up, I did go to very diverse schooling, diverse in the students, not diverse in the staff. So it was just a very interesting experience going from a diverse, mostly Black and brown student population to being one of 7%, and having to deal with different microaggressions, having to deal with tokenism, especially as a Black student who is not afraid to use her voice, who then went on to become the chartering president for our NAACP chapter on campus, who then, became the first vice president of the Connecticut State Conference for NAACP. So my presence and what I demanded on campus was something that I necessarily never had to do in other spaces, as far as my student peer-to-peer interactions.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and I had a lot of conversations with my fellow Black peers on campus on whether or not we quote unquote preferred those microaggressions versus some of the overtly right overt racism that one might experience in the South. For me, I'd rather you be straight up to my face.
Yeah, let me know. If you KKK, just say that.
Oh, let me know. Just let
say
me know.
That. Don't be right. A human resources person that don't hire me. Just tell me you with the Klan. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that this quote unquote post-racial society that we've kind of transitioned into, or that mentality, is very dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. Because we not some of us, not all of us, but some of us in this, next generation have the mindset of it won't happen to us. In high school and at the college that I went to in Connecticut, I had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different Black men who, was under the impression that it won't happen to me. I'm not going to be the next insert countless thousands of names here.
Yeah.
And is a very dangerous mindset to be in, because at that point, if that's your mindset, then you're not seeing our reality. And if you're not seeing our reality, we can't progress.
Yeah, no. So I love this because I went to a PWI initially for school, and I was an athlete there. I was a scholarship softball player, and there were some definite microaggressions. But I think, I remember being in my sociology class, and the professor, who was tenured, that's going to be important later in this story. The professor who was tenured, saying, "Oh, if this was 20 years ago, Sonny and Curtis," I'll never forget, his name was Curtis, the only other Black dude in the class, Sonny and Curtis wouldn't be able to be in class with us. And I just looked around like, what is she talking about? Like, where did this come from? What kind of lesson are we talking about here? So she goes on, she says it again, says it again. And I'm like, none of y'all goes, like, I'm looking at Curtis like, Brad, like, what's up? And I was one of those the same that was like, who's she talking to? So, I got my stuff, walked out, like, I'm not dealing with this. I go straight to my advisor, tell my advisor says, "Oh, you're talking about so-and-so. She's tenured. I mean, it's not a lot we can do. I can talk to her." And I just remember being like, as a student, I was 4 hours away from home. I was being paid to play for school, essentially. And I was like, I'm not safe here. You know what I'm saying? So I go back the next week. She says, well, I guess, in front of everybody again, she says, well, I guess I found out I can't use Sonny and Curtis as examples anymore. So I won't be using them as examples anymore. Like, real petty, like, right? And so again, I'm like, Curtis, if you stay here for this, that's on you, but I'm rolling out. Right? So I go out. Apparently it was after the drop day. They wouldn't let me drop the class. My mama drove 4 hours and ate those people up. I never went to the class again, and I got an A. I went there. Okay, A. Never went again, but it really had a effect on how I felt about education early on. And you could tell really that it was a trick of the enemy, because now I'm like all into education. But many people know my story. Like, I took a 10-year break of school. And so a lot of it had to do with those early years, and I just wasn't protected in those academic spaces. And so, you're right. When you are, which is why I think it's imperative that, even younger ages, as we're going into our professional areas, I'm like, everybody need to be teaching some type of class at a community college. Please, like, whatever we do, if you just got to do one, if all of us just teach a community college class, we're going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? We got to let these people see that, see us being represented in higher ed, because they're doing whatever they want to do. And we're seeing it now with what crazy DeSantis is doing. We're seeing it. It's happening in Georgia. It's happening, all over. I mean, this ain't the first day. Yeah, it was, Arizona was doing this 20 years ago. That's how they got rid of their Aztec studies program like this. So it's not, it ain't nothing new. It just keeps popping up. And so it had such a hold on me, though. I left, school that year. I ended up getting married, doing all this other stuff, got divorced, finally, got remarried. COVID happened, and I was like, oh shoot, I ain't got nothing to do but to go to school. So I went back and was able to finish. But we never know what kind of impact that we can have in that moment, which is why it's imperative for people like us to start to pull and start to really respond, so that we're making sure that we're we the answer to the problem. I'm the answer to the problem. I want you to bring the problem to us. So as we kind of talk through that long bit of story was really to talk about community organizing. Like, I think there's a disconnect, especially with those of us who experience a lot of this racism, a lot of this misogyny. There's a disconnect with, we'll post something on Instagram, but we're not doing nothing. So how do we move to that next step? How do we move to that actual social action where we're taking those steps and we're being aware. How do we become aware? How do we actually take those next steps? And hopefully we'll hear from Lisa too about some of those legalities, because Lisa works within the legal field. She's finishing up law school, so she hanging out, but she already works within the law offices, and so she's always trying to tell us how to keep ourselves together and what we need to do if we stopped, and all of that kind of stuff. But how do we get to that next step? Like, all right, I see it's a problem. I shared George Floyd. I shared Ahmaud Arbery has a 5K that's coming up. I shared that information. What do I need to do? What's the next step?
I think one of the most important pieces of community organizing, and definitely one of the greatest first couple of steps, is to know that whatever you do, whatever your mountain is, whatever is your gift, your strength, can be used for community organizing. Community organizing a lot of times looks like protest, looks like someone on a, what do you call it? Not a bullhorn.
Like a walkie? Like the, it is a bullhorn, ain't it? It ain't a bullhorn.
It is a bullhorn? Yeah.
A
protest oftentimes looks like someone who's on a bullhorn screaming down the street. And while protests, have been effective ways of organizing, it is not the only way of organizing. And oftentimes, the real organizing comes after the protest, because what are we organizing for? What is the policy? What is the change that we want to see? Yes, we're making awareness when we're screaming up down the street, but what's the after? And so knowing that whatever your gift is, whether it is art, whether it is fashion, whether it is entertainment, whether it's sports, all of these different areas, whether it's education, whether you are a doctor, whether you are a nurse, all of these different areas has space and grace for community organizing. And I don't want people to continue to be left out or feel left out because I'm not gifted in public speaking, or I don't have the ability to stand up for long periods of time when we are marching in these different protests. So know your strengths and get involved with a community organization that help you build on that strength. My community, my political home is NAACP, and has been for a very long time. There are many other organizations out here. NAN, there are, what is it called? Melanie Campbell's organization, the National Coalition for Black Civic Participation, Georgia Stand Up, New Georgia Project, all these different national, state, and local organizations that are available and open for all of you to participate in and get connected. So again, they can help you build on your strength to then help progress the movement.
I love that. No, I love what you said. I literally, every time I look at your name, like on social media, I always be like, oh, I got to sign up for the NAACP. I keep forgetting, but I'm going to do it tonight. Tonight, I am going.
Listen, become a member.
I'm going to become a lifetime member, because I think for so long, like, we would always hear about the NAACP, but I don't know that, again, it goes back to that disconnect. Like, it wasn't until I got to my current school, which is a PWI, but it is a PWI that is steeped in social justice. It's in our mission statements, in our values. It's on our t-shirts. Like, they don't forget, like, this is what we really here for, right? And so it wasn't until I got to that where my professors started challenging all of us, like, y'all in here learning about all of this protesting and community organizing and social justice, but it means nothing if you're not actively doing it in your community, And so I was stunned, by that challenge, because I was like, well, I might be able to do something. I could do a podcast and create some content, but that's not going to be a movement. Like, I need to be a part of a movement and throw my weight behind something that maybe it's already happening. I ain't got to reinvent it, but how am I being active, and how am I showing my children and our young people that this is a part of being an adult, is being active in your community. So I'm super glad that you're able to kind of bring up not only the NAACP, but some of these other organizations that you mentioned. And I looked on the NAACP. I think it was only like, what was it, like $50 for the year or something? Like, it was less than $50. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot.
It should be. I'm thinking of, my membership has been the youth membership, which starts at $10. So it's really not expensive. I think the adult membership starts at $30.
Yeah,
but check that.
It wasn't a lot. I know it was less than $50. It wasn't a lot at all. But it just makes me think about, so as we're talking about right now, right? We are, I think I just saw Keisha Lance Bottoms, Miss Keisha, had posted something about the lieutenant governor and how they were trying to move the Georgia's lieutenant governor went after college spending on diversity programs. Now, as we talk about diversity programs, that covers a lot of things, and I think people don't realize this means gender programs as well.
It does.
So every woman, whether you white, black, native, indigenous, whatever, this is talking about programs that assist us as well. Even if you're a white woman, it's like, you got to know that this really encompasses over half of our state. You know what I mean? Because, women alone are making up 63%. So it's over half of our state already. When we see this, what should we be doing? When we see something like this, okay, I shared it on my social media. Now, what should be my next step to do anything? What can happen?
So you have a lot of options, a lot of different options. Petitions are great, for sure. If you have a great base, if you are familiar with a lot of people, if you have a great following, always you can do petitions. You can call the governor's office. You may not have voted for that man, but that man now works for you. So he is bound to what you want, what we want as a people. A lot of organizers, when we are at the Capitol, say this is our house, because it is definitely our house. We are the power holders, we are the stakeholders, and they are accountable to us. Let's never forget that. And so they are at your will, at your call, at your email. You can definitely talk to some of your local elected officials, and then some of your state elected officials who may have different ears of different people to get to where we want to go. And you can definitely read more about whatever the issue is that you see on social media. Don't let social media be your sole provider for information, especially if it's something that could affect you down the line, like this one for cutting diversity spending, or like student loans, our African American history programs, all these different things that we are seeing popping up on our social media timelines. Do a bigger dive.
Oh yeah, no, that's important, because for a moment I used to let Facebook be my news source because I was on there all the time. You know what I'm saying? It
can happen to the best of us, especially coming out of COVID, where we were on our phones 24/7.
That was it.
Scrolling down Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or your social media of choice, and just reading all the different things. Some people have just gotten accustomed to getting their news from social media.
Okay, so let me ask you this, just as we kind of start wrapping up. Let me ask you, who are some people that you follow, or some websites that you follow, or organizations that you follow, that you would suggest to say, hey, these people are giving great, well-rounded information. This is a great space to start. If I want to start, I'm a brand new social justice. I realized, you know what, arresting folks, arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. That was where I started. Now, what do I do? Well, who are some people I should surround myself with? And like you said, you're talking about reading. Where should I be reading? What should I be getting into? Let us know what to get into.
Okay. Let's start broad. Let's start national. Let's start at my home. Definitely, you should be following the NAACP page, and not only the NAACP page, but the NAACP Youth and College page for sure. The Youth and College, I might be a little biased, but we do great work, and work that not only affects our generation, but all the generations to come and generations older than us. All the work that we do is interconnected. So definitely NAACP. If we want to bring it home to Georgia, a great organization that has done a lot of great work in different areas and multiple capacities for the state of Georgia is Georgia Stand Up. Georgia Stand Up is run by their great president and CEO, Miss Deborah Scott, a woman whom I love and admire. Her work speaks for itself. Again, they cover different capacities within Georgia, whether you're talking about civic engagement, whether you're talking about labor laws, whether you're talking about community resources and mutual aid. Georgia Stand Up kind of touches on it all and does excellence in each thing that it covers. If you want to talk about police brutality specifically, you should definitely be following Justice for Georgia. Justice for Georgia is run by Brittany Burns. She just got married. I do not know what married last name is, but again, another great organizer who has done a lot of work for the police brutality that happens here in the state of Georgia. A lot of times we are talking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's, but we got some issues here at home too. So it's definitely in our best interest to keep our eye out at home and follow organizations again like Justice for Georgia who do that great work. If you are in the education field and you want someone to follow in the education field, Alfred, aka Shivy Brooks, is another great organizer who has an organization called Teachers for Good Trouble. They are amazing. He is amazing. Great organizer, great activist, great teacher who is currently teaching in high school, teaching our Black students how economics and culture go hand in hand, and how they can progress and build generational wealth and also be good for our community. Let's see, you can also follow your local Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood for any and all women's or health, reproductive rights. They are doing great work. That kind of pretty much covers the hot topics.
Okay. Those were good. You gave us a whole list. I'm gonna listen back through and be following everybody. Tell the people to run you a check because you just gave them a commercial. Right. Okay.
Promo. But no, they are all organizations that do great work nationally and for the state of Georgia. So I can always give a little free promo.
That's right. I love that. So tell me, what is next for you? What's next for you? What can, we know you had your aha moment. You started Black Student Union. You started the NAACP youth chapter at one school. You're the president at another one again. You graduated from the Spelman. Like, what's next? What's next for you?
What is next? Next is law school.
Come on.
While the LSAT, is trying to take me out.
That's all right.
And I also think that any standard testardizing is rooted in institutional racism. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. It's not going to take me out.
You can come back. You can come back and talk about it. Because then I'll tell you how I pulled my kids from school and started homeschooling them over a standardized test. So I'm right with you.
Listen, Pastor Cindy, we here.
And they graduated. And my oldest one graduated.
Okay, early.
Period. A year
Early.
Okay. She's at the Morris Brown College right now.
The Morris Brown College, okay?
Yeah, my oldest son right behind her. So it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? Stop playing. Stop letting these standardized tests tell your kids what they are. Stop doing that. Challenge these tests. Challenge them. I digress. Okay.
That's word.
I got bad.
But yes, law school is next. I plan on using my JD, using my Juris Doctorate, in collaboration with my passion for activism, to be a civil rights attorney and to work for, amazing organizations such as NAACP, LDF, or, possibly starting my own practice, and continuing to consult for different nonprofit organizations as they are doing community work.
I love that. Well, we're going to support you. I'm going to hook you up. I told you I got a lawyer that I got to hook you up with. Maybe he can give you some tips and some fun things as well. But I'm so excited about what you're doing. I definitely want to continue to have you kind of stop by and just tell us about what we need to be doing. I think, again, I'm just trying to really within the community, I'm just trying to connect the dots so that people don't feel like activism has to be so far away. And like you said, you may not be the person at the front, but that don't mean that I'm not the one that's, printing out the paper. Yeah, creating the flyers, texting the people,
exactly.
Sending out the emails, whatever. I think that's probably one of the greatest things that one of my grad school classes taught me. It was an intro to leadership class. And she talked about how in any movement, you're going to have the front facing person. That's the person that's kind of that people know when they think about, the NAACP or something like that, they think of this person. But then you got the actual leader. And she said the leader is the one that actually is putting everything together. And that's highly likely not the person that's on the flyer in front of everybody. So it was just such a movement. So I'm excited for that everybody gets to find where they fit in within a movement. But I challenge everybody to be part of the movement. And in order to be part of the movement, you got to move. So I'm hoping that everybody is being part of the movement in this next season of their lives. Larnee, thank you so very much. Tell the people how they can follow you or get in touch with you if they want to connect with you.
So if you want to connect with me, you can follow me on Instagram at I am Larnee. Larnee is spelled Larnee. Or you can email me at Larnee Satchell, again, Larnee, Satchell, SATCHELL @gmail.com.
Thank you so much. And always, y'all know, thank you for tuning in to the Sunny Side View. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next week.
My name is Sunday Joy, and thank you for listening to my mom's podcast.